Right, it is 9:33. I have one trade with DPLS, and I was in and out of this one very quickly because I don't like stocks that trade with a very wide spread, but this one is, in theory, uptrending, and I guess at this point I can draw perhaps a trend line from here to the bottom of this candle, the wick, and yeah, you see, not very fun to have a trend line and then it has a wick, but it's doing it, so it's just not something I'm too comfortable with, but maybe with more experience I can be able to hold on to it better. But in theory, this was a morning spike setup. Not very nice in terms of a daily chart, but I do like how we started with a gap up and we had nice volume pre-market. So I was thinking that it was going to be something where I could try to continue and make a move towards the upside. And I thought the nice round number of resistance was this 12 level. So I did buy at 931, which was right here at 12 when it was looking like it was going to break past it and that it was going to not just break past it, but then uptrend some more, like it's doing now. Again, just not very comfortable when the stock trades with an ugly spread like this, and it has all these wicks, but it's still going. And I did sell half of my position the same minute at 12 because I didn't like how we made a move towards 12 and a half, and then it started to sell off, and it was looking kind of scary looking. It never broke the day low, but it did break below my risk level, which is VWAP. And this is going with what I was saying with that first trade. I think it was with 88C, where I'm trying to trade a stock that is having a potential morning spike, and my risk level is going to be VWAP. It's just way too scary for me to enter a setup and then I'm risking the day low, and then it breaks the day low, so then I have to deal with a potential morning panic, and there could be even more slippage now towards the bottom, and that's just not something I really want to be a part of. So I did sell half of my position just because of the fact we did have this wick under the risk level, which was VWAP, but as you can tell, it never closed below VWAP, so essentially I could still be holding on to the position. And I just need to remember that with morning spike setups, I need to remember that I'm not going to cut the trade unless it closes under VWAP. It might wick under it like it did here a few times, which is not ideal, but it could totally, just do a wick and then it can uptrend some more. I did sell the rest at 932. Again, not really happy with the way it keeps getting under my risk level, and I got out at 124 right here is when I sold the other half. So I made a little bit, but clearly looking at this now, I could have made a lot more. And yeah, I'm doing a lot better with morning panic bounce play setups, not necessarily morning spike setups, and I'm trying to get better at that. But maybe ideally in the future I will, and I could be much more profitable. In theory, if I were still holding a position, I wouldn't use this trend line anymore because of how volatile it is. I'd probably do something aggressive like this. So I'd be interested in cutting it if it gets to 145. Essentially, if we break under 15, I'd be cutting the position, whatever amount I would still have left. So yeah, that's the case right now. I'll be looking for more setups. Definitely like the idea of having VWAP as my risk level for morning spike setups. And again, it can wick under it like it did here, but it can't be something that it closes under. Otherwise, I'd be cutting it, and it's way too risky to risk the day low. That's just a little too much for me. That's it for right now. I'd be cutting the trade, even if it goes to like 17 later. It just broke under that trend line. All right, it is 9:51. I think I traded this one better. HNRC. This was a morning panic bounce play. I don't really call this a morning panic bounce play, even though it did kind of drop, hit a bottom, and make a move towards VWAP, because it doesn't really look like something that really offered an opportunity to be profitable besides just nailing the bottom at the bid and then selling at the ask, because that's all it did. The candles were kind of wide here, but I did see this downtrend right here, and I like how it actually just came back all the way to where it was trading previously before starting to have a run up, and I just felt like, well, it was probably going to try to do some kind of a bounce, right? So when it was looking like it was trying to hit a bottom somewhere, I didn't get the very bottom. I did buy 700 shares at 40.64. That was at 9.44. So right here in this candle, 40.64. I was in it right around here, thinking that it was going to be a potential bottom, and my risk level was the day low. So if it looked like it was going to go back to the day low, which is 38.31, and then it looks like it's going to break the support, or the people at the bid at 38.31, if there are any there, I would be cutting the trade. I'm not going to wait for the day low to break because it might just continue to panic. And here's an example of that, CGRA. Not one I would have traded. I didn't like this right here. I was looking at it though, but this one in theory breaks the day low, right? If you're waiting for it to actually break the day low, you're going to be selling with some slippage. But in theory, if you're going to sell the setup because it looks like it's going to break the day low, maybe you will be able to sell at 57, or maybe you're selling it at 58.4 because a big seller at the ask showed up, and now you're cutting the trade because it really looks like it's going to head to the day low and break it. So you're not going to get caught in some slippage. At least you're less likely. You can still get into some slippage. So yeah, that's the case with HNRC. I did have to hold through it, and it was a bit uncomfortable for a few minutes, but it did eventually start to make a move towards VWAP, which is 45. So when it did start to uptrend, I did sell um, everything actually, but it wasn't everything at once. My average was 444.3, almost 444.4 at 950. Right here, 950 is when I got out, and my average was 444. So right around here. And what happened is that it looked like it was trying to break above it and everything. And then when we had like a big bid to show up at 43, I instantly wanted to sell into it because it didn't seem like this thing was really having much volume anymore. And I did sell some there. I think if I click here, it can show me. Yeah, so I did sell 200 shares at 43, and then I did sell 500 shares at 45. So I think when it got to 43 at the bid, I placed a sell order, and I was able to get 500 shares at 45, which is nice, at 950 right here. And then the order continued to sit, and I did eventually get the other piece at 43, which was my limit. So that was the case with that one. Yeah, this one really worked out. I think I still just barely had $100 risk level. I think it being $70, so just right under that threshold before, I consider it to not really be a setup that I properly traded $100 risk level. But yeah, that's the case right now. I guess CGRA could try to do a bounce. And as for DPLS, this one did uptrend. It did get as high as 2 cents, which is massive because I had my entry here at 12 and I sold at 124. Yeah, not very nice that the wicks disappeared after, a while, like right after I sold. And I mean, besides this one right here, it got to 2 cents, which is nice. This is something that is super aggressive when the stock breaks an uptrending trend line like this and then it tries to follow it, but it never really gets above it. I've seen some that are so bullish that there's an uptrending trend line, it breaks past it like it does here, but then it actually uptrends aggressively and regains it and starts to hold on to it. But this was still super bullish. I'll be looking at this for maybe a dip towards VWAP or a bull flag setup. A bit scary, I'll be honest. This could have maybe been a bull flag, but it was a little too small perhaps. But definitely could have traded DPLS better. I at least traded HNRC a lot better, and I will make an update later if I know how to close the video and not accidentally try streaming. Alright, it is 10:14. I just got out of a trade and this one did not work out. Look at all this volume right here, all this selling price action. I tried this one, DPLS, for a bull flag setup, like a very big bull flag, and not too ideal because it was trading below VWAP, but I was thinking that maybe it can break below VWAP, and then if it shows a sign that it's going to break back above VWAP, and then, okay, continue the uptrend. There we go. We just did the bull flag setup. I hope everybody here sold at 2 pennies. Anyway, when it looked like it was going to ideally, break under it and then come back above VWAP, it could be something where it can then try to uptrend from there. And at that point, it could be, a nice setup to be a part of. So this one sucks because it didn't work out, but I mean, too bad. At 10:13, I was in right here when it was at 17, when it was trying to break above VWAP, which at the time I think was 168. And I was in it for that reason right here. and my risk level was the low of this range, which was 162 breaking, and I got in the setup, and what happened was is that a 3 million share seller showed up at 17, and that's like an instant big red flag. That's like get out now. That's really bad price action. Very unlikely that a big 3 million share seller shows up at the ask and it just gets taken out instantly. I mean, it could, but it didn't happen. I instantly sold. For that reason, yes, there was some slippage, but I still got out at 164 at 1014, and it's a bit lower now. And I don't really want to try it again, even if it will work in the future, because once it failed, I don't want to really necessarily give it another chance. It's just one chance and that's it. I'm gonna see what it can try to do in regard to this trend line that I have right here, if it ever wants to break above it. But quite frankly, that's gonna be a different setup. That's gonna be like a trend line break, reversal long setup. No longer really a bull flag. This is kind of too long now for me to consider it as a bull flag. And that's pretty much it for right now. It looks like CGRA did eventually try to turn around. I don't really mind missing this one. I don't really like the stock, especially with that other trade I had not too long ago. And yeah, that seems to be it right now. Nothing with HNRC, although this one can try over a longer period of time to break above VWAP and uptrend with like very little volume. I've seen stuff like that work out. And yeah, there's nothing else right now. I think I'm going to take a step back from trading and try to protect my gains, not feel like, oh, I just had like these nice first two trades, and especially this one that could have done a lot better with DPLS in the morning, and then I lose it all because I think I'm so smart. So that's pretty much it right now. I'll make an update later, if not when the market is closed. Alright, it is 4:48 p.m. and I'm here to call it off. Overall, I'm going to be up on a day, I think 24 bucks and 53 cents, and that was these three trades right here, two with DPLS and one with HNRC. HNRC really worked out, and that one ended up being super profitable, which was nice. And I also had the right amount of shares, $100 risk level, so anywhere from 70 to 120. I did have the right amount of shares with DPLS, but it seems like with the first setup in the morning, the one I didn't trade that well because I just didn't like how many times it was getting under VWAP. It seems like maybe I should have had twice the amount of shares, so maybe 40,000 shares. And then, I mean, let's just look at best case scenario or impossible case scenario with DPLS. It did get as high as 2 cents, so let's just see what a sell there would have been. Just, in like crazy best case scenario. That would have been a $320 profit, almost doubling my money there. But a more realistic one would have been a sell at 15. That could have been possible, and that would have been 25%, 120 bucks. And that was taking into consideration the trend line break that happened at that point. Let's see if I can get the right chart that goes over the setup before it got too crazy right here. When it was breaking under the uptrending trend line, that would have been a great point for me to have considered selling. And again, I have a lot more experience with morning panic balance plays and morning spike setups, so I need to keep that in mind. Unless it starts to change and it no longer works, I think it's good to have a risk level at VWAP, and if it actually closes under VWAP, that's when I should be worried and I should be cutting the trade. But in this case, again, after I entered, it never closed below VWAP. It did make a move towards VWAP and under it, but it never actually closed under it. So let's just see if I can go over my my entry was at 931 right here, and you can see after this candle I never closed under VWAP, and it did a super nice spike. So ideally in the future, if I see something like this, I can be able to trade it and be mega profitable. It did eventually turn around. I talked about a trend line with DPLS right here of it breaking, and it did break it here, and it kind of sold off. And maybe I could have taken a buy right here, or maybe ideally when it's breaking the range at 155, and it did make a move towards VWAP 162, and it got a bit higher. Let's see what a trend line would have done here. Maybe something ideally like this, right? So I would be in. Maybe not right here trying to be smart because it might just break the little range it has and then downtrend and then I'm cutting it. But maybe right here when it starts to break above this 155 ceiling and I'm in at 158 perhaps, and this would be nerve-wracking to hold through, but yeah, especially because I wouldn't have been able to draw this trend line until it had an uptrend right here above VWAP, but it did make a move as high as 17 or yeah, 18. I mean, best case scenario. So that was another setup I could have taken there. I was trying to be smart, trying to trade it around that VWAP level, thinking that it might, be able to turn around at that point, but that wasn't the case. This is no longer a bull flag. This is now more of a reversal long setup with a trendline break. And as for the other setups, no interest with GTII, no interest with this one. No interest with this one besides a little thing in the morning that looked like a morning pending bounce play, but it wasn't that nice compared to any of the other setups. HNRC did get higher. It did get to the 45s, even 46 here, but I wouldn't have really have held that long for that. I'm very happy selling it where I did right there, especially because the volume dried up at that point. And this one did sell off. No interest in really trading. This one right here because it had this one right here and it failed. And then this one did kind of work, but I was more interested in DPLS compared to CGRA. And yeah, it turned around eventually, but besides this trend line break right here, I don't really see something where I would have considered a long. Maybe when it starts to break above this range right here, I'm in at 294, or what is this? Actually, not 294. I looked at the wrong one. 337, and then it gets to VWAP at 35.9. So maybe a setup there, but that was pretty much it. That's it for today. I'm happy to learn that lesson with DPLS or morning spikes in general. I'm gonna try to stick to that risk level, which is VWAP, getting broken and then the candle closing under it. That's it for today.